For nearly 20 years, I just wanted one thing. Take Final Fantasy VII and make it up to date. Make it pretty. Make it feel more appealing to a bigger audience in today's world. That's it. That's all I ever wanted. That's all I ever wanted. No alternate timelines. No cosmic destiny. No ghostly arbiters of fate. Just take one of the greatest RPGs ever made and give it a fresh coat of paint. I mean, that would be pretty simple. In 2005, Square Enix committed an act of psychological warfare. They unveiled, with a PlayStation 3 tech demo, recreating the opening of Final Fantasy VII. I mean, for most people, it was a demonstration of the PlayStation 3's graphical capabilities. But for Final Fantasy fans, it was the equivalent of dangling a steak in front of a starving wolf. I mean, suddenly, Cloud looked real, Midgar looked real, the dream of this world looked real. And for a brief, beautiful moment, we all collectively lost our minds. I mean, myself included. Now, don't get me wrong. I do adore Final Fantasy VII. But even back then, it was starting to show its age. The translation was, let's call it, charmingly questionable. The character models looked like someone had lost a fight with a box of Legos. And while I still maintain that this guy R6 belongs in a museum, RPGs were evolving very fast. I mean, take for instance Mass Effect, Dragon Age, Deus Ex. The genre in itself was changing. And meanwhile, Final Fantasy VII was sitting on the sidelines, waiting for a comeback tour. So when Square Enix showed us this tech demo, they basically sat on it for like the next decade, just dragging us through this timeline. You made like news upon news updates saying remake is definitely happening, a remake is on the cards, and then the creators would be like, we want to do it, we are thinking about it, we are discussing it, we are doing this, we are doing that. Just announce it. Just say yes, you're doing it, or say no, we're not doing it. I mean, like, let us rest. Let the game rest. We were on tenterhooks about this. I definitely was on tenterhooks about this whole thing. It wasn't before we finally get to see, 10 long years since that tech demo, that they would announce Final Fantasy VII Remake. I mean, my response was pretty much accurate to everyone else's response. That's about time. It's about time. This announcement was finally made. The impossible had happened. Final Fantasy VII Remake is a real thing, and we're getting it. Yes! Brilliant. Oh my god, we're going to get that fresh coat of paint. We're going to have an upgraded character designs. We're going to have a fresh combat system. We're going to have our dialogues more translatable. It just felt so real to me that was going to happen. And naturally, the next day after hearing that announcement, I went straight out and I bought a PlayStation 4. Seriously, like, that is no joke. The day after they announced Final Fantasy VII Remake, really went out of pocket because, you know, £500 at the time they were. Then I sat patiently and I waited for the game. Well, I mean, I sat patiently. I mean, I was literally just like, I wasn't just literally staring at a wall for 5 more years. I mean, I played other games. There were other stuff that I actually done, maintained relationships, experienced minor life events. I mean, it's just the usual for us. I mean, we definitely had that. Then after another half decade of waiting, Square Enix finally announced that Final Fantasy VII Remake would launch in 2020. And at the very tail end of the PlayStation 4's lifespan. Well, that's okay. 5 years of development. They surely remade the whole game by now, right? Right? Well, it turns out, no, they didn't. They just remade the Midgar section. Effectively, in the original game, was sort of like the tutorial piece, whilst giving you a little bit of idea of what the story was going on about. There was a lot more that they added into the opening section of Midgar. Like, this opening section was just like 40 to 60 hours plus of gameplay. 40 to 60 hours of content that back in the PlayStation 1 era was like 1.5 to 3 hours long, depending on how you treated it. I mean, that's the part of the game that most people get through before they finish a bag of crisps. At least in my particular, I'm a slow eater, all right? Sorry, guys. Now, to be fair, it was an incredibly detailed recreation, but it did leave me wondering. I mean, like, what's next to come? What are they going to do? I mean, this wasn't a complete remake. This wasn't a completed game in my eyes. It was just 10% of a game. This was how it was advertised. This is part 1. Okay, fine. So what are we going to get? It's like an episodic release, like Telltale games. You're going to get that, DLC, expansions. You're going to get those, right? I mean, that would make sense in this day and age. You get that with certain titles. They drop in a lot more into the game so that you can progress further into the story, right? Nope. I think that that's basically the equivalent of Square Enix laughing politely at us and immediately started developing an entirely separate game instead, an entirely separate continuation, and make a full-on game of it. Okay, I mean, they could do that. They that's I'm okay with that. So we'll get that on the PlayStation 4, right? We'll get that on the PS4. I mean, I've already bought the console. I'm invested. I'm committed. I'm emotionally attached myself to this plastic rectangle. I might want to actually see if Square Enix is going to continue this on. And so they go ahead a few years later and they announce Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. And with all the grace of a bar stool to the kneecaps, informed us that it was going to be exclusive to the PlayStation 5. It's a next-gen game. PlayStation 4 had been left behind, abandoned, discarded. I mean, at this point, though, getting through Final Fantasy VII Remake project was starting to feel like as if we were chasing a moving bus while Square Enix just kept changing the route. Yeah, one PlayStation 5 later, several £100 poorer, and my dignity hanging on by a thread, I was finally off to the Chocobo races. Yes, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. And to give credit where it's due, the game is gorgeous. Bigger world, bigger visuals, expanded combat, more systems, more freedom. Yes! But so far, so good. Everything was actually running pretty well, pretty smoothly. So far, it was a fine title, but there was a little bit of a problem with Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. A little itch in the back of my brain, as it were. One that had been there since pretty much the credits rolled with Remake, really. Is this a good story? Is this... Have they made too many changes to the already good story? Do I even like this? Well, the answer to that is frustratingly simple. Yes and no. Because, I mean, the more I thought about it, the more I realized that Final Fantasy VII Remake and Rebirth weren't really giving me what I had spent 20 years imagining in my head, They were giving me something else entirely. Something stranger, sometimes brilliant, sometimes baffling, and occasionally infuriating. And yet, I couldn't stop thinking about it. Which is probably why I found myself nodding along to the SebiWeb school of thought. Because whether or not you love these games, or you hate them, they're still fascinating. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about why Final Fantasy VII Retrilogy isn't what I thought it would be. And that's okay. With the remake, what I thought I was getting, purely simple. You get the original Midgar sections, you get a little bit of an understanding of the characters in there, you get a little bit more fleshed out with some of the supporting characters, and you kind of get to see a little bit more of the style and grace of story build-up. Naturally, with remakes, you would expect a faithful recreation. Now, essentially, in my mind, that would be Final Fantasy VII, but prettier. There are great examples of great remakes of classic games that have come back and actually done a really good job with it. Like, for instance, Resident Evil. I mean, they've done a wonderful job with some of their remakes. I mean, some people love it, some people hate it, they still prefer the original. You're still going to get that. You're not going to please everybody. They still maintained a steadiness of, like, this is what the story is, and this is how we kept it. And yeah, things were cut out, things were put in, things were, just minor changes, but they weren't really insanely bad. They were never against what the original game was trying to tell. So my original understanding of the Final Fantasy VII Remake was that it was to be about preservation, not reinterpretation. So to follow along with it, they kind of went down that road where they would make the game to be more palatable towards their previous outings with the Final Fantasy VII compilation. So you had the Final Fantasy VII Advent Children, Dirge of Cerberus, Crisis Core, Final Fantasy VII Reunion. That, I mean, like, I definitely feel like that game gets a lot of flack for some reason. I don't really hate that game. The only thing I hated about it was the fact that they only released it as a PSP, which really pissed me off because I'm not a handheld gamer. I'm not an online gamer. I'm not a handheld gamer. I'm very picky. But I also felt like they were actually trying to incorporate what happens in the compilations to make the remake feel fleshed out. In the first iteration, the first remake game, that was pretty accurate. It didn't really change too much. You got a little bit of Biggs, Wedge, and Jesse, which I loved. I loved the fact that we got to see more of Biggs, Wedge, and Jesse. We got to see their kind of characters. We had a little bit of more of the what life is like in the slums. Certain aspects of the particular game, when you're going through with it, felt okay. Yeah, that's leaning into it. It's not too far from reinterpreting it, but it's still the original game. I like that. That's good. Fine. But there was always something that kind of made me feel a little bit mismatched with that one in bringing up as a faithful recreation, and that is injecting other things into it that we didn't really ask for. I don't know why they had Kate Sith have a brief cameo for like a couple of seconds when the Sector 7 plate happened. That was a bit... I think anybody who never played the game, the original game before, would look at that and go, who the fuck was that? You know? Who's that guy? Nobody knows who that person is. What's that all about? And I felt like some scenes weren't really well told music speaking wise. Like the when the plate does fall, the music was more action based. With the original, they did the whole thing where they took the music out and all you got was like the horror of the crashing sounds and everything else that happens into it. That's good. That was what made that good. Made it more cinematic to a point that it was like, okay, it's lost its edge. And then there was like the whole side missions where you're trying to help the survivors. Again, that one was good. Love it. Then you kind of go into the like storming the Shinra headquarters. You go straight onto the place there. I love that you got the interpretation of going up, you know, climbing up the stairs or blasting through the main front door. You know, let's keep that in because I think people enjoyed that a lot more, especially the sarcasm in that game. That was good. I love that. I'll stick with it. I will die to my days, and I will still be the person that goes, yeah, I'm going to take the stairs, because I just love the dialogue. I love the banter. Even though in the original, Tifa uses the R word. So, yeah, a little bit dated, but still, you know, I mean, like, I think they cleaned it up in the original Steam version now. She doesn't say the R word anymore. But I also kind of felt like with the transition from saving Aerith, you know, when you get up to the point where you actually find her in her, like, little hidey hole area, she's got, like, this hidden space. I like that because it gave her a little bit more humanity into her suffering and a little bit more reason to root for her. That made sense. And I kind of went, right, okay, that's good. Right up until that point when you go from there to following the oily trail instead of blood. I mean, that kind of felt nerfed in for me, really. Those were subtle changes. That and also the confusing moment where let's stab Barrett for a change. What? Why would we want to? Why is that happening? Why do you want to, like, give a mini heart attack for like 2 seconds only for it to be recorrected? Well, there's a reason why they wanted to do that, and that is to create what I feel is Final Fantasy VII's Retrilogy's biggest controversy. And you know what it is. It's the whispers. I just don't get the concept of going through the story, you're finding your pace in the game, fate, destiny, you know, metaphorical ghosts that only you can see, that only, you know, the characters that are in the story can see. Everybody else can't see them. Okay. What are they doing? Apparently, in the discussion of this, they are the Arbiters of Fate. And then the Arbiters of Fate, they recorrect the timeline when things go horribly wrong. Like, for instance, instead of, you know, killing off just one character like President Shinra, you're actually killing off Barrett. And it's like, nope, they correct that. Because that's not part of your destiny. We need Barrett. Barrett is a mainstay in the character, which makes perfect sense. But why do it in the first place? Well, it's a meta-narrative, I feel. I feel like that this kind of becomes less of a remake, but more of a retelling or a reinterpretation of traversing through time and space. And of course, that kind of gets mentioned a lot as the story progresses onwards, because they start talking about different universes, all different outlines and outcomes, but it all seems to be kind of spilling over into this original story. Okay, That's a change. That's a change. That's I don't know how I feel about that. It feels weird. It feels weird to kind of sit there and look at it as a particular narrative that seems to just come to you, the gamer, and goes, this is not meant to happen, but it's happening. And and I don't know. It kind of felt wrong. I guess I can understand that they're looking for a little bit of mystery to kind of have you, the original gamers of the first game, to second guess what goes on. It's the little mini heart attack that you get inside. I get it. It makes sense. I understand your first experience of a remake or a retelling of a story. To me, that's kind of like the premise of what would happen if Mr. X went ahead and just straight up murdered Leon Kennedy in front of Claire Redfield, and then all of a sudden, halfway through the battle, some ghostly figure comes around, or in this case, I guess if we're talking about Resident Evil as a metaphor, it's the zombie that comes around and spills guts right into Leon's wound, and all of a sudden he's healed. And it's like, well, these are the particular zombies that don't want you to live because they know you're supposed to be alive. Seems pointless. It does seem a little pointless, to say the least. And it is my biggest gripe with the Retrilogy as going forward. I guess certain other particular aspects of this game that I can say, especially with Remake, that I absolutely adore, which was the growth into certain quest lines that happen in Midgar. Like, for instance, the run around in Wall Street was pretty good. I do feel like they cartoonishly designed Don Corneo to be a little bit too more cartoonish than what we were expecting from the original game. Because when you play the original game, yes, that's what he sounds like. He is quite cartoonish, but I always kind of felt like the sinister vibe was meant to still be quite present, but it came off a little too cartoonish. But there are certain facets that I do kind of enjoy, and I'm probably alone on this one with some of the Final Fantasy VII Remake haters out there, but I kind of like the honeybee in scene. I'm a musical theater guy. I love it. If you're gonna put a song and dance to it, and you put a mechanic to it, I'm gonna enjoy it. That was I think that was for me. I enjoyed that. Out of all the other haters, I feel like that's a guilty pleasure. But yeah, certain particular side quests that happen in the game that you go alongside with, like the train graveyard. But then there was just like, I felt not every expansion does need to be that necessarily built up. Because I think that sometimes when you're playing these games, sometimes you can mistake more content for better content. I mean, the whisper problem, I mean, every scene I felt that they were popping up, it took me out of it, because it stopped making the story flow, and it started to make you feel like as if your decision in the game, your pursuit in the game is no longer valid, and it stops you and it goes, wait, this isn't meant to happen. No, it's not. Why is it happening? Why are you here? There is no particular reason why you are here. Please don't do this. Please don't drag this on into the next game. I mean, that was the thing that I felt like was going to be, okay, maybe we could rein it in the next title. Maybe we could just open up to the original telling of the story as we go outside of Midgar and into the main world, the open world. And that's where we feel like we needed to say the one thing that needs to be said. Rebirth needs to change my mind. Rebirth needs to make this game good. Even though I liked playing Final Fantasy VII Remake, it still has its gripes. I don't hate it. I still feel like it has replayability. I still feel like you do have some moments where it is a little bit more Final Fantasy VII than Rebirth is. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, however, when I first started playing it, I remember in one of the interviews, I think it was Hamaguchi-san, I think it was Hamaguchi, I don't know if it was him or one of the other creators, cited the world discovering side of it, where you would be, traversing the lands, the grasslands and everywhere. And they kind of got inspiration from Assassin's Creed. And that worried me a little bit. Because I, as much as Assassin's Creed is a universally loved title, I fucking hate the mechanics of that game. I absolutely abhor it. I don't think it's good. It takes me out of it. I do not enjoy it. I don't care how great the stories were. It still took me out of it. So playing Rebirth, I got that. You got the open world. You got another new factor in it. character chemistry. You have this sense of building the relationship with every character. Barrett, Tifa, Aerith, every other character piece that comes into it, and you whatever you discuss, whatever decision you make, shows like with a happy face or a frowny face or a sort of smiling face, because they're just warming up to you in a kind of way. And it didn't really matter which kind of decision you made. You just picked the character. You just picked that choice, and if they reacted weird to it, they reacted weird to it. If they called you weird, you're weird, you know. So the party interactions was a bit of a breath of fresh air. I do mind that that kind of made me hearken to Mass Effect, and I love Mass Effect, and I think that, you know, if that's what they were going for in that one. Yep, I love it. More of that, please. Well, one of the few things that can be said about Rebirth in a good light is that it helps us let these characters exist more. You get to know more about Red 13. You get to know more about Aerith. You get to know more about Tifa. You also get a little bit more about Tifa's views of the incident 5 years ago in Nibelheim, which I've kind of felt like was a good telling. Like, they did a good story of telling that one. It did kind of toe the line of, like, you know, oh, one of these soldiers is voiced by the same guy playing Cloud. Pay no attention to that. I mean, you go back, you listen to it. The guy, the soldier is literally, it's Cloud's voice. I mean, he tells you, like, you know, his dialogue is very much like pedestrian, unlike Cloud's, but it's there. He is there saying those lines. It really was sort of a nod as sort of like, see? Yeah, see what we're doing there? And I thought that was pretty good. I thought they actually did pretty well. I feel like Final Fantasy VII Rebirth has a lot of great things to be said about certain character works. Now, I say certain character works, especially Aerith. I mean, Aerith is just... she goes through so much in this game. I mean, you can actually find her soul rediscovering things and reevaluating the situation, especially when it comes to Cloud and Tifa's situation. You could definitely see where Brianna White, the lady who plays her, she says in one of her interviews that she sees Aerith and Cloud as a sort of brother and sister relationship, which makes total sense to me. I mean, like, when I was younger, I always looked at Aerith and Cloud as like the one true love story. But now, as I grow old, I tend to kind of find that Cloud and Tifa makes way more sense. There's so much history, there's so much chemistry, and they do so well to kind of challenge that chemistry in Rebirth. And that, to me, was another one that I went, yeah, that's good. Yep, this is the part of the reinterpretation I'm on board with. Give me some of that. This is all kind of like the strengths of these games that I do love to talk about. I mean, you still get some nostalgia in Rebirth. You do get a little bit of the nod of like the pursuit of Sephiroth, the trauma that these characters have gone through, and the legacy that creates into this. It can be something truly, truly special when you actually find what's been remade and what's been elevated to the story. Because the characters themselves seem aware that they're trapped inside this story. And that's with the thanks of the Arbiters of Fate. And that's where I feel like that little meta vibe that they decided to go with, even though that they have this great thing going with these particular characters, they have the biggest problem a little further down the line. There's too much ambiguity with alternative timelines, multiple worlds, Sephiroth's explanation of the whole entire thing. I mean, the idea was to confuse Cloud. I felt like that's what he's trying to do. Every walk down the line, he is literally planting a seed of doubt of everything that Cloud knows and remembers, including his relationship with Tifa. That was, a good little piece to go from. But when you start to kind of sit there and see, like, oh, okay, but why is he doing it this way? I feel like the Arbiters of Fate really, the Whispers are kind of like, in a way, contradict Sephiroth's actions. Like, he's trying to get these word out. There's a bit of a distinction that needs to be pointed out on that one. I just feel like more than one entity getting in the way of this, of what's going on in the story, creates not doubt for the characters, but also doubt for the gamer, because I'm kind of like going, what's the point of Sephiroth saying these things when the whispers are just going to get in the way? It just kind of, it trips over itself at times, and I just kind of got out of that. But the other person that kind of happens in this game, and I feel like this is an actual piece that kind of has this problem, and that is Aerith, because Aerith also seems to be a character that's in the know of what's happening, and it seems to come from a position where she's seen it all. So it's like this whole theory that she is a future Aerith from the live stream going back in time and trying to stop Sephiroth, who's gone back in time, even though he was killed in the original game. It just never made sense to me. I mean, that's another thing as well, is like, how can Sephiroth go back in time from the original game when you've killed him off, knowing full well that he is pretty much a byproduct of Jenova, which is a calamity from the skies, which means she's a freaking alien. And from some of the valid points that they made in Rebirth with the Gi tribe, you see that the Gi tribe are not of this planet, so therefore they can't return to the planet. So they are forever suffering in this purgatory world, and it's suffering for them, and that's why the black materia exists for them, and getting into that particular cause for it. So there's that part of me that just kind of feels like, well, they want to see the end of everything. What happens if you just kill them all off? What happens if you finally kill off Sephiroth, he doesn't find a way back in time? That doesn't really create a compelling part of the story, and the idea of it being considered a sequel. I mean, like, I may be alone on this attack. I feel like I may be alone on this point, because maybe I'm missing one or maybe two or maybe 3, 4, 5 different things that has strength to that knowledge, but I don't see it. I don't see it. And one of the things about playing Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is they're anything but subtle. Oh wait, they are very subtle. It also creates the one thing that became the issue at the end of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, and that was, upon first glance, again, this is a thing that happens to me whenever I play the title first time over, and something happens, and I'm kind of trying to help translate it to my brain to kind of go, okay, so this happens, this happens, this happens. We see the blade go in her, the blood's trickling down, but all of a sudden she's still alive, she's comforting Cloud. Okay, so maybe this is a specter of her. She's trying to comfort Cloud because, again, this is sequel Aerith here, going back in time to try and change things a bit, which makes no sense in my mind, because I felt like the death scene in the original has so much brevity to it, has so much on your shoulders, that when you get into the final fight with Jenova, you feel the resolve, you feel the push to want to fight, to pursue Sephiroth. You now have a never before stronger urge to fight Sephiroth. And that I kind of understood, and I felt like the tension would carry throughout the whole thing. They kind of didn't do that, because it kind of made us go into another problem that I felt didn't really need to be, but it's there because a lot of people are fans. Well, they're fans of him. You all know what I'm talking about, Zack Fair. Zack Fair is a good character, but he belongs in Crisis Core. Nowhere else. I felt like his story that they decided to do with a different timeline, and conversing with Biggs, who somehow survives in that one, and everybody else is dead. It created doubt in my mind that what we were getting wasn't an elevated story. I don't feel like there was any elevation into this, because it doesn't go anywhere. It only goes to one particular thing, and that is, so we've gotten to this point. What do we do? We're in the final battle. Fuck it, let's just traverse Zack all the way over to where Cloud and Aerith are, and let them fight Sephiroth, go through that particular thing. And then it just kind of ends with him back at the church, and okay, see you in the next one, I guess, Zack. I don't know what, it left more unanswered questions. And again, I know you have to wait for the next one to find out what's going to happen, but I genuinely feel a problem in the game, a problem in the design of the story, because you're trying to drag somebody in out of pure popularity. You could do it if there was like past iterations, if like, if you wanted to go back and, revisit sections of Crisis Core into the game, fine. Maybe reinterpret it, that's because it's coming in Cloud's head, that you can kind of get that little niggle of doubts that, oh, this guy Zack apparently was that. Wait, no, I don't remember Zack. Where did this come from? I mean, it would make so much more sense if they had done that, but they didn't. They made an insistence that it was going to be that way. It didn't turn out that way, and I feel like it's a moot point in that. But that's pretty much what I kind of look at it, really, because Zack's story is sort of messy in places, and I feel like it's just not really kind of the be-all, end-all for all Final Fantasy VII compilation games, really, because, they could have done so much more with Cloud's psychological doubts in what they're pursuing. It can be sometimes messy, but it can be sometimes brilliant with that, because the mess is what makes people kind of want to work through it. Right now, I'm just kind of like going, I don't know. This may be the OG brain that remembers fondly of the story and actually kind of going, the voice in my head, that Zack, that's telling me I shouldn't be doing that. Or whenever I go to sleep, hey, remember when it was like this? Yeah, I remember when it was like that. And you go back in that particular time frame and you see how things were. It's great. I love that kind of thing. But I don't know. Like after going through those particular changes, I do sometimes question Square Enix's approach into the remake trilogy sometimes, because I feel like it's that they're going back onto like all the things that they had approached the game originally, wanted to add these sort of things in, but in the old saying, due to technological restraints, they couldn't get these particular parts added into the story. Fair enough, makes sense. I still feel like it's worth having a conversation about it. I still feel like it's an important piece of video gaming history that we need to discuss, because it is, as much as like hardened Final Fantasy Remake and Rebirth and Retrilogy fans are like staunch on this and will fight to the death. I know, I see the comments. I get a lot of pushback for my views on this. I really do. And I understand. You guys love it. I won't take it away from you, but understand there are people like me who have their gripes with it. They love it. They want it to be good. They want you to feel validated with your remarks and on this game, and we do not want to negate that from you. At least I don't. In particular, I feel like in order to love something, you have to accept its faults. And that's where the problem lies with the other side of this remake trilogy fiasco, and that is the fandom. I get it everywhere. Where every time I mention about a particular part of the story that I don't get, or it doesn't make sense, or has any particular bearing on anyone at all, I feel like they come at me. They would come at me, or they would come at someone else, and they would fly off the handle, or they would over embellish the approach that we would go with on the story. Oh, because if this person doesn't do this, then he must be like this. There are characters that I will go on in later videos. There will be character arcs that I would love to discuss ways down the line. But trust me, I've seen it all in every comments, like on Reddit, on Facebook, on Twitter, where there are people who would say that I'm crying about this. I don't. I love the fact that they think that I would be a hater of this game. I have a love-hate relationship with it. I love playing it. I love the nostalgia. I love what they have actually done in terms of a game being the game. But I feel like there was a lot of things that were being fixed that didn't need fixing. There were certain things that just didn't deserve to be reinterpreted in a way that they reinterpreted it. But we will get into that in the next few videos as time goes on. This is my particular view. I love to have this open conversation with Final Fantasy fans, understanding what you like about it, what you love about it, what you hate about it, what you absolutely cannot stand about it. I want to have a healthy discussion with Final Fantasy fans about the problem that Final Fantasy has. And it does have a problem. Judging from what we have seen in the Final Fantasy VII Revelation trailer, there's little niggles of hope that makes me think, I think they found it. I think they found something there, you know? Like, okay, yeah, there's some little bits and pieces I probably would make fun of. I mean, there's a lot of things that a lot of the haters would probably have a lot of fun with. They're jumping from skydiving off of the high wind. That sounds like a funny thing to talk about because everyone's going to be, oh, look, it's Fortnite fantasy. Yeah, that's a funny way of looking at it. But I think the more important facets to pay attention in the reveal trailer, and this is another thing that needs to be stated, what they done with the revelation was that they revealed everything that OG fans remember. They remember Weapon. They remember the Northern Crater. They remember the scene in Junon, the attack on Junon. They remember like other little bits and pieces of battles, and also they now get to see Sid and Vincent as playable characters that we knew were going to be playable in the next title. We got our first glimpse of it. They overshared a lot of that, but there's a lot of things that they didn't share, and a lot of it is to do with what most people like myself have an issue with, and that is there was barely a glimpse of the Whispers, virtually no Zack interesting. And also the other factor with how things ended with Rebirth, there's no Aerith. I mean, that in itself is even more intriguing to me because it's sort of like, so is she still in the game? Of course, there's other little niggles that actually pop up there, like the fit system, the job system, which is very, very retro Final Fantasy. I'm so on board for that. Are the costumes a little bit basic? Yeah, but you know, maybe what we were looking at there was probably like early designs. What we'll probably get later on, and it might actually not be the final look, you know? But I definitely feel that Final Fantasy VII Revelation has something, that they did something with that trailer, and that was to have the OG gamers look at it and go, okay, I'm going to give it one more try. Okay, I'm going to give it a go. Because I think pretty much right up until that trailer did come out, I was pretty much on the fence about whether or not I wanted to continue playing it. I didn't know whether or not I mean, like, a lot of people would feel like as if they want to continue it because they want to see it through. I get that. Me, on the other hand, not so much. I kind of felt like I was done after Rebirth. But I feel like they did that primarily as a way of trying to hook and bait OG gamers. And that is not a terrible thing to do because, you know, I mean, like, once upon a time, you know, you had us right at the beginning. You had us right there in 2015 when you made the announcement that there was a remake coming. And we all believed it. You know, we all believed it. And now years have gone by. You finally got the third one coming out. And you still got people wanting to believe it. And they're looking forward to giving this one a go. I'm looking forward to giving this the old college try. I hope it makes a good impact. And with what they've actually offered. That's my thoughts on the reveal trailer. I feel like Revelation has potential to close off the Final Fantasy VII story that they had and maybe make a conclusion that satisfies everyone. And that's my hope, that everyone is satisfied with what happens in that story. So yeah, that is my take on Final Fantasy Retrilogy in a sense. It's not bad, but it's still pretty bad. Do I still enjoy the games? Absolutely. Do I feel like wish it could have been better? Yeah, absolutely. But I could say that about a lot of Final Fantasy titles. And I probably will down the line as we go through all of this together, hopefully. And if you like what you saw, please leave a like. If you have anything that you wish to have a discussion with me about, I am open to that. Leave comments below. If you want us to actually have a look at any other particular facets within the Final Fantasy world, it doesn't have to be Final Fantasy VII. We could look into Final Fantasy 8, 9, 10. If you really, really want me to try out Final Fantasy 11 or 14, please let me know. I would probably like to do a live stream of that, you know? Have you guys actually guiding me through it? I'll be sitting there just kind of not really liking it, but again, I'm not an MMO guy. I can't. I've never tried it, but I don't know. With the right kind of convince me to try it. That's all I could say about that. Anyways, that's the video. I hope you guys have a good day. Have fun.